From the early 2000s to the late 2010s, many franchises challenged Grand Theft Auto for its open-world true crime throne. Games like Saints Row doubled down on the gangster side, while franchises like True Crime opted out for the law enforcement side. But in 2012, Sleeping Dogs decided it will portray both sides of this open-world genre in a single game. Sleeping Dogs was originally going to be a sequel in the True Crime series, but after many delays and poor budgeting, Activision cancelled the game in 2011, only for Square Enix to pick it right back up and continue development without the True Crime name. Sleeping Dogs released to favorable reviews, but did not really cause a mass ripple in the industry other than being nominated for a few awards, and since then, the franchise has never seen a sequel. If you play the game yourself, the combat is smooth and flows nicely with brutal combos and environmental attacks, gunplay that feels straight out of a John Woo film, and most importantly, a storyline that, while not wholly original, provides a great example of why execution of themes matter. Sleeping Dogs follows undercover officer Wei Shen as he returns to Hong Kong to infiltrate and dismantle the triad organization known as the Sun On Yi. As a protagonist, Wei brings a lot to the table, from his street smarts, his strong sense of morality, and his loyalty to his friends. But as the story goes on, each one of these are tested, and each test mentally breaks Wei Shen more than the last. Playing through the game again, I began to appreciate the story the game tells as I started to understand Wei's background as a character and what it means to play a false identity. Wei was originally born in Hong Kong and lived most of his life there, but when his sister becomes addicted to drugs, he was moved to America to prevent any further corruption from the gang life harming his family. The separation from not just your home, but your culture can create a complex idea of identity. The move from the Asian culture of Hong Kong to the Western culture in America can cause a rift in how you relate to your surroundings, even when you return to your original home. With the death of his sister and the complication of his identity, Wei Shen never really had a home to be comfortable with. Years later, when joining the police and going undercover, this rift in identity grew even greater when your life consists of playing a role of someone you are not. Wei Shen is an excellent chameleon. He knows just how to blend in with his surroundings and get all the people within it to trust him. However, what happens when that trust becomes something more? Wei initially makes his way into a low-ranking gang through a childhood friend named Jackie Ma. And through Jackie, Wei is inducted to the Water Street Gang, led by Winston Chu, who is an up-and-coming member of the Sun On Yi. Wei has no problems at first manipulating Winston and Jackie to get the job done, but the more the gang trusts Wei, the more they open up to him. Winston at first comes off as distrustful and rude, even at one point nearly blowing Wei's head off when he has a suspicion that he's a snitch. But when Wei proves himself time and time again, this all fades away, and we see a much more likable side to Winston. From here, Wei is not a member of a gang, but a member of a family, something Wei has already lost with the death of his sister. What happens when the criminals you are meant to bring down become your brothers who are willing to take a bullet for you? Psychological stress is what becomes a factor in Wei Shen's everyday life. Normally, you think the stress would come from the fact that Wei's cover can be blown at any minute, and he will be tortured and killed as a result. But Sleeping Dogs instead brings in a new angle in this theme. Can you look yourself in the mirror knowing you're lying to a family that cares about you? The best story arc in the game happens early on in the first half. The wedding arc starts off simple. After Wei has earned his place in the gang, Winston begins to open up to him more, telling him the importance of family and how they consider Wei a brother now. Family has to look out for family, and one of Winston's requests is to look after everyone if something were to happen to him. This includes his fiancée Peggy. With that, Wei is tasked with helping Peggy run errands for the wedding, and meeting Peggy for the first time, you immediately feel like you're hanging out with your super cool older sister. Peggy wastes no time getting to know Wei, and for the first time in the game, you feel like you're actually getting to know the real Wei Shen. Up until this point, you were either doing one of two things: investigations while trying to hide your physical exterior from being seen working with the police, or you were doing work for the triads while trying to hide the mental interior that harbors all of the stress and lies. Wei is always lying or hiding in one form or another, but in this mission with Peggy, he is not Wei Shen the undercover cop, or Wei Shen the triad gang member. He is simply just Wei Shen. Peggy only wants the best for Wei's well-being. And even though it's her big day coming up, she's already making plans to take care of Wei by finding him a nice girl to settle down with. After all, you need someone you can be your true self with, right? With her outright sisterly affection and her telling us personal stories of Winston being a big ol' softie, Peggy's company is a dramatic difference from all the accusation and doubts Wei has to deal with in his job. The rest of the mission is nothing but dumb fun, going from breaking into a monk monastery because they're the only ones in the city that has Peggy's mother's favorite flower, to chasing down a van that stole the wedding cake. You do all of this not because it's your job, but because Peggy is family. And like the rest of the game keeps telling you, family looks after family. Finally, the big day is here, and you get to see your hard work pay off when Winston and Peggy are standing side by side, getting ready to celebrate their union. Sadly, when it comes to themes in gang lifestyle, there is only one way this could end. You are separated from the group, and moments later, a horrible massacre happens inside the building, as Wei rushes in to save his new brother and sister. Wei mows down dozens of assassins to get to them, but he is too late. Winston is mortally wounded, and Peggy is already dead on the floor. Winston's last words aren't a request of revenge or to save him. His last request is to leave him and get Peggy out. Winston dies in front of Wei's eyes, and yet again, the Hong Kong underworld has taken another family from him. From this point on in the game, Wei has both feet planted firmly on the edge of his identity. He has a duty as a police officer, but the loss of Winston and Peggy breaks something inside of him. His actions become much more violent. He disobeys his superior officers right in their face, and the tipping point comes with the murder of the man who did it all, Dog Eyes. Dog Eyes was a former friend of Winston turned rival, and after the death of Winston, his mother tasks you with finding out who took her son away from her. Wei eventually finds someone who knows who set up the wedding hit, by abusing the tools given to him by the police. And then, he delivers the man to Winston's mother. Wei can hear the man's screams as the mother goes to work on him with a meat cleaver, a clear act of murder that Wei was an accomplice in. But he doesn't stop there. Dog Eyes is revealed to be the man who made the wedding massacre happen. Wei is once again tasked with bringing this man to Winston's mother. After a long and bloody struggle, you finally get your hands on Dog Eyes, and you could deliver him straight to Mrs. Chu. The fact that you do not get an option in this matter shows this is a conscious choice by Wei. He does not attempt to lure his handlers and bring Dog Eyes into custody, sparing his life. Instead, he brings him to his own execution. Let's rewind to the start of the story. Wei was tasked with bringing down the Sun On Yee and everyone affiliated with them. Winston, Dog Eyes, Jackie Ma, all of them would have been in jail by the end of the investigation. This theme of family is what muddies Wei Shen's path. He has a job to do, and all of them must go down for it to be done. He shouldn't be attached to the people he has to arrest. But when they are violently murdered, Wei's mission switches from destroying the Sun On Yee to destroying anyone who hurts those close to him. This internal conflict is what makes Sleeping Dogs so unique as a game, with its theme of identity affecting all aspects of the story and even in the gameplay, where you can lose your cop score, but you can only gain triad score, symbolizing how Wei Shen is losing his identity as a cop and forming a new one as a triad. What's even more engaging is the fact that Wei has not lost his sense of morality. He will constantly help those in need, even if they are criminals. Which asks the question, is that Wei's identity of a cop? Or is that Wei's ideal of how a real triad should use their power? What I like the most about Sleeping Dogs is its departure from the mechanics established in the former series True Crime. In True Crime, you could choose the path of the character based on your actions and missions. Being a good cop will lead the character down a righteous path, while being corrupt will eventually turn you into a criminal. This is not present in Sleeping Dogs, despite the police and triad scores being a reflection of that mechanic. And because of that, the writers want you to know that every choice Wei Shen makes is of his own freedom. Losing control of a character's path like this makes Wei Shen's actions more open to interpretation throughout the story. He will swear he's still on the side of the law, but when Wei is killing men by throwing them on meat hooks, engaging in brutal firefights to save members of the Sun On Yee, and even making choices to shape the future of the Triad for the better, leaves so much doubt as a viewer watching his story. As the game goes on, you start to see Wei in the same perspective as all the other characters in the story. You begin to doubt his motivations, and even become skeptical of his actions. Wei is a character with many layers. Some of those layers are real, and some of them are an act, but those layers are what make Wei such a fantastic character. There is a sense of relatability seeing Wei lost and unsure of his own path. I'm sure many of us have gone through the same thing in one form or another, and the writers, in my opinion, did a wonderful job of portraying the stress of how it feels to slowly lose your identity. As I mentioned at the start of the video, the story of Sleeping Dogs is not entirely original, but the writers understanding that is one of its biggest strengths. There are writers that like to take ideas and themes that have been done to death and pass them off as entirely original concepts while adding nothing to the discussion. Sleeping Dogs does not do this. Instead, they take a theme and focus on the execution of it. And this execution is why Sleeping Dogs still holds up 6 years later after its release, as we continue to see an evolution in story in video games. Due to Square Enix owning the rights, it's really a coin toss if we ever see a sequel in the Sleeping Dogs title. But despite years of nothing, I still hold on to the hope that Square Enix one day will choose to not let Sleeping Dogs lie. Alright, that's the end of the video. Sleeping Dogs is a weird spot where it's not exactly an underrated gem, since a good amount of people have played it, but it's also not in the level of popularity that it should be. Hopefully this video took you back to your experience with this game, or even made you interested in watching what happens in Wei Shen's adventure. With that, I am Chris from Genuine Chill. If you liked the video, you should like the video, and maybe consider subscribing if you want to hear me talk out of my ass about games. Video essays are new to me since I like making guides, but I really need a palate cleanser since Dead by Daylight at times makes me want to die. As for the next essay, I'm eyeballing that Bugsnax game. But until then, I hope to see you next time.